So, how long does it take to make a habit? It's agreed that it's approximately around 21 days that it takes to make a habit. And in 21 days, we are going to together bring in front of us wellness. All right. Now, what do I mean by wellness? So, wellness is the direct opposite of chaos, frustration, confusion. And pretty much anything that you deal with that has some level of chaos, frustration, or confusion, how you can deal with it as a problem is to replace that chaos, that frustration, that confusion with wellness. But how do you do that? How do you replace frustration, chaos, confusion in your work, in your life, in your identity with wellness? Well, it starts with having a very clear picture of your problem so you can have a clearer picture of your solution. Let me give you an example. So, one of my books is entitled I Hate My Wife. That in and of itself is a story. We might talk about that in these 21 days. However, one of the things about the question that I asked related to that book is often, is it possible for marriage to become better because of hatred? And most people are like, no. Then there are some who say yes. Those who actually say yes, they kind of touch on what it is that I'm getting at, but not completely. Those who say no, they just need complete clarity. Here's what I often respond with. I said, so if you are standing at the edge of a bridge and there's a person standing at the edge of that bridge and they say, hey, I just need you to know if you take one more step, you're going to plunge to your immediate death. What is it that you're most likely to do? Most people, they'll say, I'll take a step back. Some people say, man, I'm running in the opposite direction as quickly as possible. And some people are like, well, don't jump. Okay. Well, here's what you need to know. The clear perspective of taking one more step as the plunge to your death is ultimately giving you a very clear picture of the problem that's in front of you, which positions you to isolate that problem and look at the solution that is actually opposite of it. Meaning, you can turn around, go in the opposite direction with great clarity because you know that taking the step forward is going to cause you to plunge to your debt. Turn around and going in the opposite direction is going to help you to plunge to your absolute living. And here's what I say, yes, absolutely, hatred can make marriage better because, watch this, when you know clearly what hatred is, you have the ability to clearly define and pursue that which is love. And so when it comes to chaos, frustration, and confusion in your work, in your life, in your identity, it comes down to what is the very clear reasoning behind the chaos, frustration, and confusion. And when you are clear about that, you can position yourself to replace those things with wellness in your life. I mean, what's the point of wellness though? Why do we want to have wellness? What is wellness? Well, I mean, wellness in simple is the condition of being well. It is being well. That's what wellness is. It's the wellness of being well. Ness is state of being, if you will. And so most of us, we want to be well because we know being well actually means that we're good. We know we're all right, you know? And let me tell you this, whether you're watching this with me or watching the recording of it, I want you to understand You and other people no longer have to hide the fact that you're not well, right? We have too many of us who are walking around with a mask over our confusion, our chaos, our frustrations. And rightfully so, in one sense, in that, like, we need to stay focused on what we're doing, give what we need to give energy wise to what's going on. But in truth, most of us are really, really masking it beyond what we need to put on. See, let me give you an example. You got to put on clothes to go outside. You can't go outside naked. All right. If you want to, it better be in a secluded place where you can actually have the authority to do that. But you're not going to go outside without any clothes on, especially not in this cold for many aspects. But you're not going to go outside without any clothes on. Why? Because that is actually not valuable. It's not useful. It's a distraction. And there are other reasons, okay? So you got to cover up. And what you put on should be a reflection of who you are, who you're becoming, what you're pursuing, what you're doing, all those different things. But it becomes a problem when you cover up, and that covering up is actually to hide something on the inside rather than to protect it or to cover it in necessary regard. Okay. So here's what I mean. We got to cover up what's going on inside of us. But in the private spaces of our life, covering it up and not dealing with it, not really addressing it, not really positioning ourselves to replace it with what we really desire and know is possible, that's not helpful and that's not healthy. Actually, that's not well. All right. But let me tell you what I know is really behind the aspect of wellness not existing in our life. And you might disagree with me, but I tell you what I know, not what I heard. It is selfishness that is disguised as self-preservation. Here's what I mean. Selfishness disguised as self-preservation is, hey, I got to get mine because I got to take care of me. Even you have people today who are saying, I've been focusing on others, I've been doing for others, and now it's time to take care of myself. And don't get me wrong, you do need to take care of yourself. You can't do for others if you can't do for yourself. Okay, if you're not well, you can't help others be well. But here's the reality. Why we need to be well is so that we can be a strength of wellness for others, right? Even you think about it, in the work that we do, in the relationships we have, in the places we go. Yes, we go for ourselves, but we also go for others. The work that we do, we primarily do it for others more than ourselves. We get paid a portion off of what we produce. Whether you're an entrepreneur or an employee, no matter who you are, you get paid off of a portion of what you produce. All right. You entrepreneur and you're making, 9 to 10 figures a month. You're not going to be able to spend all that 9-10 figures. I don't care who you are. You can make 50,000 a year. You can make 10,000 a year. You will never be able to produce exactly what you are able to consume off of what you produce. Never. Okay. So when it comes down to that selfishness that's disguised as self-preservation or taking care of self, it becomes a problem because what you do is you position yourself to actually focus more on you, and where you need to be focused on others that actually is designed to replenish and return value to you, reciprocate value to you, you actually cut off yourself and restrict your ability to deal with that. Now, why am I talking about that? Because over the course of this next 21 days, I'm going to deal with a perspective of wellness called doing for others is doing for self. Listen, I'm telling you, when it comes to getting wellness in your life, it's not just you deal with your food sources. It's not just you deal with your working out, your sleep, and all those different things. It's that you deal with the awareness that when you position yourself to do for others, you get to do for yourself at its core. Yes, we got to do all those other things. We got to make sure we work. We got to make sure we build solid relationships. We got to spend time studying and bettering ourselves, all those different things. But let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you over the next 21 days various different thought processes of how you can achieve wellness. And not only can achieve wellness, it is designed that you, that I, that everybody else achieve profound wellness through the concept of doing for others is doing for self. Yeah. Now, that's going to sound strange to most people. I know it is. But let me tell you something. We're not just dealing with hyperinflation in our world because of bad business decisions. That's a part of it. We're not just dealing with um, the reciprocating realities of issues from a pandemic or recessions. We're not dealing with a looming recession just because of prices and, debt ceiling and all those things are valuable. But let me tell you that those issues actually come from a deeper place of disregard for certain legal structures, disregard for certain strategies. Yeah, we can point back to the fact that we were taken off of the gold standard one day. There was a point where, real money was actually gold and silver, and now it's not. There are some countries that are returning to gold standards, all that kind of stuff. You can point to all of that. But here's the truth. We can go and get all of the medications to deal with mental health issues, to deal with various diseases and conditions that exist today. We can do all the research possible, and those things will be valuable and helpful, but it will not help us to make the gains that we need to make in the wellness we need to experience, because true wellness comes from care, concern, compassion, connection, and contribution to one another. Let me just tell you, that's where it comes from. I teach business, and in teaching business at the college level, I teach the various constructs of the principles of business, various aspects of personal finance, problem solving, and decision making, dealing with marketing and different aspects. And let me tell you, if you have the most solid principles and perspectives of business, if you're able to leverage and engage the most valuable, listen to me carefully, the most valuable strategies and structures, policies and procedures, if you're doing all of that and you're doing it well, you're doing it at the highest level, there will come a point in time to where you will begin to experience levels of chaos, frustration, and confusion that those aspects cannot eliminate. And that's where we are in our society today. We have chaos, frustration, and confusion that we cannot legislate, that we cannot strategize against, that we cannot actually create better products against. We are in a difficult situation. Why? We're in that difficult situation simply because there is a strategy of wellness that we are not leveraging and have abandoned, has been hidden away, and we need to reconnect with it, begin to re-leverage it, rediscover it, re-benefit from it, release it again, so that we can change the game for everything. And it's ultimately simply under the umbrella perspective of doing for others is doing for self. All right? Let me give you one proverb from the great king of the past, Solomon, who was one of the most wealthy men in the world. Matter of fact, today, not only would he be a multi-billionaire in today's terms, he might even be a multi-trillionaire. He might even be bigger than Apple, right? Here's one of the proverbs that Solomon wrote. He says, "He that gives to the poor shall not lack." Now, there's a second part to it, but I want to focus on that first part. He that gives to the poor shall not lack. Now, watch this. Solomon never lacked. Solomon never lacked. Actually got people out in my backyard fixing my fence. Oh boy, that's gonna be cool. Anyway, it's been down for a little minute, and looking forward to making sure it gets situated very well. Anyway, so Solomon said, "He who gives to the poor shall not lack." That means shall never lack. That means will never have lack. Even if you have an element of chaos, frustration, or confusion, you will have the ability to replace it with wellness, using my phrases, right? And what we also saw of Solomon's life was all of the nations, all of the operations, the businesses, those who were leaders, they would come as well as send their people to him in order to gain his wisdom. Matter of fact, it was said of him that he had keen insights and he had a mind as limitless as the sands of the seashore. That's powerful. All right. Now, this man who had wealth of the most absorbent regard. I mean, 1 year's revenue of gold was measured to be somewhere upwards of almost $1 billion. It was like 666 talents of gold, which when you do the conversions and on that, I think it's like 750, 778, something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it's almost $800 million. Right? That's just 1 year's amount of talents of gold. That's not including anything else, right? And so what we identify with Solomon is that he had a continual flow of substance, relationships. He had a continual flow of opportunities. He had a continual flow of solutions to his problems. And one of the things we know he did, and there's evidence of this in so many different respects, one of the things we know he did was this. He had a regular practice of ensuring that the needs of the poor were taken. And what I mean by the poor, I don't mean poor in the sense of just somebody who's hungry, because that's included. Just somebody who's homeless, that's included. Just somebody who's naked, that's included. Just somebody who is just destitute and they have no ability. Yes, that's a part of it. But poor deals with those who have problems in various respects, meaning those who have a need that they themselves cannot do for themselves and taken care of. And so the way I want you to think about how you can do for others and do for self is to understand that you need to be consistent in meeting the needs of those who cannot help themselves and cannot do back for you. And what will happen is you will engage a law of life and nature that will begin to shift the trajectory of your experience to where you'll go from positioning yourself in primarily chaos, frustration, and confusion to positioning yourself in wellness, right? We can do a lot of the different things that exist in the context of wellness. A lot of the programs, strategies, initiatives, and all sorts of things. But let me tell you what I have discovered. And this is what I want you to discover in these 21 days. And I want you to not just discover it from an informational perspective. I want you to discover it from an application perspective. I want you to discover that when you actually meet the need of someone in a way that they cannot meet the need for themselves, when you help someone overcome a situation, a circumstance that is literally taking them out, taking them down the wrong path, cause them to be on the wrong trajectory, and you actually help through your efforts, through your encouragement to put them on the right path, the right trajectory, that then puts you on a trajectory of transformation and wellness that you cannot imagine. I'm going to tell you again, I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm not telling you what somebody said and what somebody taught me without me having applied it. And so in the next 21 days, I'm going to show you how to do it. Matter of fact, I'm not just going to tell you about it. I'm going to show you how you can actually connect with an effort, connect with application so that you can actually begin to see the value of that reality in your life. Let me say this as I close this live. One of the things you must understand, and we all must understand, is this. When you position yourself to give to those who cannot help themselves and cannot do back for you, what you do is you shift yourself from being sufficient to being insufficient and carrying the weight of the experience of that other person to the extent that it connects you with a level of humanity that you would not have connected with without that activity, without that application. It also then, when you engage at that level and activate that aspect of you, it reciprocates to you being able to have a sensitivity in your interactions as a team member, a team leader, or whatever it is that you engage in your roles and relationships. And you find yourself having a sense of clarity about who you are, what you do, and why you do it that you would not have had otherwise. Let me just tell you something. And look, I've been one of the people. I have been one of the people teaching people how to, in every way possible, in most excellent and valuable ways, to leverage the most effective business strategies, the most effective people influence strategies, leadership strategies. I mean, I teach all of these things. I teach marketing. I teach communication. I teach a wealth of things. I'm the wellness professor, so I got to be able to have versatility in being able to help people replace the very constructs of their chaos, frustration, and confusion with wellness. Like, I have to have the ability to do that. You should probably do that too. You know, being a generalist versus a specialist tends to be a lot more valuable. But when you are able to be a generalist and know how to specialize, it makes it a whole lot better too. Okay, let me jump off of that. But here's what you got to understand. I have taught so many different aspects of business, so many different aspects of professionalism. I've taught so many different aspects of networking, relationship building, the whole nine. But here's what I've discovered. Nothing can actually stabilize your life like engaging vulnerably with the vulnerable. Nothing can stabilize your professional efforts like, oh my goodness, this is so good. I'm going to share something with you in just a moment. Nothing can stabilize your professional efforts and endeavors. Nothing can stabilize your relationships like vulnerably engaging with the vulnerable. To some degree, I'm going to try to explain why that is as far as really dealing with the constructs of what we experience. But ultimately, it is a mystery in and of itself. It's a mystery how the very constructs of making ourselves vulnerable to engage with the vulnerable actually makes us valuable and strong. At the core, that is the wellness that I want to give you. In other words, I want to show you how if you give wellness, you're able to get wellness back. Okay, let me say this again. If you discover, especially with me over these next 21 days, how to give wellness, if you connect with means and ways to apply giving wellness, you will discover that you will get wellness in a way you could not have gotten it otherwise. Here's what I was going to share in my last statement. So there's an elementary school, I can't remember, and there's a teacher in, maybe it's a middle school, I can't remember, but there's a school of students, kids, who saw what this guy who calls himself Secret Santa goes around and gives money during the holidays, give $100 bills. These kids actually took his idea and they raised some money to go out and actually be Secret Santas themselves, right? Put on the hats like he did and all that kind of stuff, right? And there was a news there was a story that was done on these kids, and there was this one little girl. When they were interviewing her, she said this about the experience in giving to these people, not expecting anything in return. Matter of fact, those people couldn't do anything for them in return because they were in a difficult situation. And they just did this randomly. They didn't really know that these people needed it or what their situations were. They just wanted to be generous and kind. They were following a good example. And this little girl says this. She says, their joy, that's the gift to you. Their joy, that's the gift to you. This little girl might have been maybe 7, 8, 9 years old. And she says, with a profound perspective, making herself vulnerable to give to someone vulnerable, she discovered that their joy, 7, 8, maybe 9, 7, 8, maybe 9, discovered that their joy was the gift to her. What does that mean? Here's what it means. She discovered that doing for self is doing for others. In other words, giving joy to someone who does not have joy actually returns you joy. Giving comfort to someone who does not have comfort actually returns you comfort. Giving hope to someone who does not have hope actually returns you hope. Giving food to someone who doesn't have food actually returns you food. Giving compassion to someone who does not have compassion actually returns compassion to you. In other words, giving wellness gives you back wellness. So, do you want wellness in your life? I mean, true wellness? I'm not talking about the wellness where on the surface people look and see that you're well. I'm not talking that wellness that allows you to continue to do what you're doing, but really there's something missing on the inside. There's something missing in the solidarity of who you are and what you're doing and how you're doing and why you're doing and all of that. Do you want to experience true wellness? Well, Solomon said it. He that give to the poor shall never lack. Oh, what do you mean? If you are consistent at meeting the needs of those who cannot help themselves and cannot do back for you, you will never lack. And at the core, you will never lack wellness. See, wellness at the core is the direct opposite of lack. Avoid means that something is not good or well, or is not sound, is not full, is not stable. And you, right there, you listening to me, watching me, you can have an absolute certainty of wellness. You can be well. You cannot lack wellness. How? By giving wellness to someone who does not have it, right? Giving wellness to someone who is starving for it. Yeah. So, want to discover what that looks like? Want to discover how to engage with that, how to deal with that? Follow me. Next 21 days. I guarantee you, you're going to discover something that's been hidden away, but you've been looking for it all this time. Hey, you be well. You take care. And as I often say, be great. You hear me now?